Tannehill is sacked. This time Dane Fletcher.
Hey.
This was the first down sack by Fletcher.
Let's see how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me.
Welcome to Fletcher's Unfiltered Podcast, touching on all things fitness, business, and issues in Montana. Welcome to episode 4 of Fletcher's Unfiltered Podcast. And today I am beyond excited to introduce one of our members. And that's the real reason why I started the podcast. I started looking around at who we have for members, who's in this community, who I personally know and who I personally don't know, that I could take full advantage of and asking questions that I have no clue on. And so our guest, Hilary Fritsch, did I say that last name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Good job.
thank you. So welcome to the podcast. And I really like the way that you go about dentistry because we're almost rebels in our own right minds, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
In our professions, I would say that I'm almost a rebel in the fitness and, you know, in the community of Bozeman against different things. You're definitely a rebel. The more I watch your Instagram, see what you're doing and kind of the leaps you're making, not only for the community, but the whole country.
Thank you.
Can you explain how you approach dentistry, a little bit of your background, and give everybody a better idea of who you are?
Sure. So, I think I had sleep apnea as a kid. I always snored and I would get like afternoon headaches every single day. I remember my figure skating coach used to have to buy me a Coke so I could get through my afternoon practice. And now I'm looking back at like all these different signs and symptoms that I had as a kid. So that was like one thing that got me really interested in airway dentistry. But all of that like went untreated and I ended up with an autoimmune disease when I was in college. It's called ankylosing spondylitis and it made it so that I could like barely walk at times when it would flare up.
Was that in like your spine or is that?
Yeah, it starts in your sacroiliac joint.
Okay.
And so it would just become really unstable and I couldn't put weight on it. I was literally like running on the treadmill and I felt like it snap and then all these, it just wouldn't go away. And weirdly, the doctors were able to diagnose it because I think it's kind of hard to diagnose. And so, but I was like really indoctrinated. Like by the time I got to dental school in like kind of like the traditional allopathic medicine where they are like, it's a genetic disease. There's nothing you can do, or like calories in, calories out, like food doesn't matter, all of that kind of stuff. And my dad was like, hey, like make sure you're getting outside. Like make sure you're not eating the cafeteria pizza every day, like little things. And I was like, shut up. Like that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think in my heart, I was like, he's probably right. But like, I was just stuck in this like Western medicine system. I was spending all this time and money to learn it. So it was like deep in my bones. And then, like what my dad was teaching me was deep in my bones, I feel like, but like what school was teaching me was like top of mind. And so anyway, I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I used to take like a ski pole as a cane to school sometimes. And I had to take the dental boards with an eye patch because my arthritis was so flared up whenever I would get stressed.
This is like in high school.
In dental school.
Or in dental school, okay.
Yeah, in college, I would just like limp a lot, but then it kept getting worse. In dental school, it was like really bad. Like
You're walking with a cane.
Yes.
Wow.
I was like constantly limping. There were days I couldn't get dressed in the morning. I would just like tough it out and get to school. But I mean, I wasn't making healthy lifestyle choices at all. And so that went on for years. And my sister was like, hey, like maybe you should go gluten-free. And that was my first thing. And that really changed my life actually. Like it reduced my inflammation a ton. And then I started like doing Pilates and like getting back to working out all the time and everything started to snowball and I got better. And during that time I started to like reject the traditional allopathic medicine path that I had been trained in and kind of like start researching what I now call like a more biological path. And, but it was really scary to do that with dentistry because like, I was like, people are going to make fun of me or think I'm a quack or like, the other dentists. Like there were patients that would come to me. I was working in California for 10 years and everybody there was like pretty wellness oriented. I was in Carmel and they would come and be like asking me questions like, should I really have fluoride? And I was like, yeah, fluoride. Yeah, you don't want to get cavities. But it would like get the wheels turning. And I also knew like this shit is toxic, but I hadn't really like figured out how to fully reject the system that I'd been trained in and like what that would look like to my colleagues, you know? And I was like a new dentist to some degree then too. Like now I've been a dentist for 20 years. So you get to a point where you're like, I'm going to do this my way, you know?
Yeah.
But so anyway, so that was like kind of the beginning of me taking like a more biological approach to dentistry. And all along the way, I was really interested in airway, but having a hard time finding people that really knew what they were doing. So I couldn't get the proper training in it. And then more recently, I just have like fully dove into airway stuff and found like the handful of people in this country that know how to do it and trained. Now I have like basically like almost a one-on-one mentorship with the GOAT of airway.
Who's that?
His name's Kevin Goals. He's in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And he has a similar kind of rebel story. Like he was in the military. He was making mandibular advancement devices, which are those night guards that support the airway at night, and realized like this isn't enough. We need to be treating it more root cause. And he kind of like forged his own path. And he found Ben Moralia, who's like the king of airway. He lives on the East Coast. He used to have an over 5-year wait list to get in to see him.
Wow.
Yeah, and like he did the same thing where it just kind of, he mostly forged his own path, but like found a handful of people that knew what they were doing and helped him. And that's been kind of transformational for me to just have the confidence that I can move forward because these guys know how to do it and showed me the way.
Yeah.
But
can I cut you off real
Yeah,
quick? Because
yeah.
I want to, before anything, we usually have tequila on the table, right? But today
sorry
is
to be
not
lame.
that case. No, because that was actually my idea not to throw tequila because we're not endorsed yet. So that's the one thing. But the second reason is you're training at 4:00 with us, and
yeah, I was
as
like,
though-
oh my God,
yeah.
Mike's gonna be mad at me.
We thought it'd be funny. I thought it'd be funny to get a little tequila in you and have you train, but also maybe hazardous. But before you dive in, can I just tell you about why I think I'm so fortunate to have you in this town and to have went and saw you in your office is because I went through the steps that I thought was correct. I thought I had a deviated septum with my nose because I'm sleeping like shit. And so obviously I always go look online, blah, 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 deviated septum. That's the problem. I don't breathe through my nose the way I should. I know that. So then I go to the ENT. The ENT is like, it's not a deviated septum. It's a turbinates. It's these little, almost like balloons. How would you explain those?
They're like these like kind of like coral growths off the side of the nose that are circular, and it's supposed to like spin the air and help it filter and like reduce the airflow so you're not just like getting this giant amount of air in, but they can become swollen and kind of close off the airway.
And I think that's kind of the case. And so I got surgery. I got put under for that. And then fast forward 6-9 months later, I'm still not sleeping that well. And then I was doing nicotine at the time with the nicotine pouches, which is totally pushing my bottom teeth in. I used to have like perfectly straight teeth.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So then I did that, and then I chewed while I played in the league and all the things. And so then my deal to myself was like, if I could quit this nicotine pouch situation, then I'm gonna go through the Invisalign and straighten my teeth out, thinking like, okay, that could help me breathe better. Because I went to Cleveland Clinic about a year ago now and got all these tests, sleep studies, blah blah blah, and yes, I got sleep apnea, minor case, but I was in my ways, I was like, it's like got to be something with my airways, right? And so then get the Invisalign, and it still kind of didn't solve that problem for me. And so back to the drawing board I went, and that's where I feel like sitting down with you and seeing the big picture of your teeth, the airways, how everything progresses, and my kids. Like I look at how you breathe, and correct me if I'm wrong, as very relatable to health and fitness. If you take care of it now with your kids or yourself, and yes, it might cost you a few bucks here now, but it's going to cost you a lot less now than it will when you're 60, 70 years old or take years off your life. How do you look at it that way?
Heck yeah. I mean, if you can start with kids, like that's game changer. Like there's research that shows the neurocognitive deficits that kids get from poor sleep, we can't correct for it once we fix the airway. Like if you're getting shit sleep for a bunch of years, then it's going to affect your growth and development like in a way that we can't fix. So really important to help kids. But same thing with adults. Like it becomes really obvious when you work with people who have sleep apnea all day and they come in and they're like 50 and they have high blood pressure and they just had a stroke and their doctor finally diagnosed them because they said, maybe we should check if you have sleep apnea. And I'm like, oh, this is so frustrating because you cannot have good health if your sleep is bad or if you're not getting enough oxygen at night. Like we know this intuitively, but we all act like, oh, it's fine if you snore.
Yeah.
It's not fine. It's like totally not fine. And so I unfortunately, like this is just all evolving really quickly. And I keep saying it's an emerging field, but until like the world catches on, people are going to keep falling through the cracks and having to struggle with their health. Or even sometimes like I see like amazing accomplished athletes. I'm like, well, you would have had a 30% less risk for injury had you been sleeping better.
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like NBA players, they studied Andre, I think it's Iguodala. I've only read it. I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah, I don't follow NBA that much, but yeah, I'm with you.
If he got over 8 hours of sleep, he would score 29% more points per minute.
Wow.
Yeah. So
there's your studies.
If he got less than 8 hours of sleep, he had like 45% more fouls and 32% more turnovers or something. Like the data is insane.
Okay.
So even like for my incredible athletes, you're compensating really well, but you could have done even better. Like your time to fatigue, like if you're working out, maybe it takes you like 15 minutes of running really hard before you're just like crash. You can lose 10 to 30% if you're getting less than 8 hours of sleep, or if your sleep quality is just poor. So you could have gone like potentially 30% harder.
Yeah.
Had your sleep been a little bit better.
And I'm not here to fluff your own ego, but I really appreciate your approach to handling me in your office, at least. Like, look through my sleep study, and you're like, well, it's not that bad. You maybe try this, and the nose widener. What do you call it?
Nasal dilator.
And then mouth tape, and see how that feels. And then it's like a step-by-step process. So I'm not just thrown into a whole new routine or a whole new expense, I guess, for my mouth, which 100% I'm going to go into because, have you seen that movie or that documentary called Open Wide?
I'm afraid to watch it because that guy got in big trouble with he lost his license.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous. I think it would stress me out to watch it, but I should probably watch it.
Yeah. And the only reason why I asked is I watched it probably about a year ago. I think it's on Netflix, but it's about a dentist and his son in Britain, I believe. Is that right? The Muse.
They're the people that invented mewing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it just brought a lot of light to my eyes on how they look at the jaw, the cheeks, the mouth, and everything. So then when I sat down with you, I was like, whoa, it's very similar.
Yeah,
in the way
we're
that
doing the same thing. He calls it orthotropics, and we call it airway dentistry. But it's the same concept. It's like proper jaw development, proper facial development.
And like, it's kind of funny because when I was in your office too, you're like, I feel like every woman should almost be in here before you go through anything with your like facelifts or anything like that, because it all starts with your jaw and getting high cheekbones and everything like that. If you just have a correct formation of your mouth, it does that naturally. Is that right?
100%.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I could cry about the collective pain about how many faces are ruined because of improper jaw development. It breaks my heart because I walk around and I'm like, airway, 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 airway. Like if we had grown forward and wide like we were meant to, we have these like beautiful cheekbones and this big wide smile, and there's room for all of our teeth, and we can breathe through our nose. So there's like all kinds of benefits to that. But the like, how everybody makes that duck face for social media posts, like where they push their lips forward. They're just faking that forward growth.
Yeah.
And like good cheekbones. Because as you grow wide, this mid face develops and the cheekbones start to pop. And when you come forward, it gives you that beautiful line that like supermodels have where you can follow the cheekbone down to the lip instead of this nasolabial fold like I have. It looks beautiful. Yeah. If you look at like all the pretty faces that AI creates, for example, they all have it. Okay. And if you look at supermodels, they all have it. They have like beautiful forward growth and big wide smiles.
And that's what they said in that documentary too, is 200 years ago, people had like perfect teeth. If you look at the ancestral skulls and whatnot, like their teeth were straight. They're like what you're saying, they're they're high cheekbones, they're more wide jaws, everything. That's what the Muse were saying too. And then they brought up all these skulls. I was like, those are the nicest teeth I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And my mom's grandfather was a dentist. So I've always I don't have a choice. I've always had to have nice teeth due to my mom, which is good. Now I want my kids to have the same deal. But instead of just having nice teeth and saying like, okay, guys, you're going to go when you're in middle school or whatever the proper time is to get braces and everything like this, I'm excited to sign them up with you and get ahead of the root cause before, and can you widen the palate? Is that possible right now to widen the palate of a kid that's say 6 years old and create room in their teeth before having to just get braces and whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I should tell you Henry's story. So Henry's my little third child that's always getting into trouble.
Before you go on there, the first time I met Henry, Millie is your daughter's in here training, and your two other boys are out there, and they're out in the field, and I'm watching outside of my office. I'm watching two kids kick the living shit out of each other, and they're one of them's on top of the other one, and just like this for way too long, and I think it was your nanny was watching them in the car or something, and the whole time I was like, all right, this is going on. Okay, he's still on him. Like 2 minutes later. So finally I came down and I went out in the field and I was like, are you guys good? And they both get up with big smiles like, yeah, we love wrestling. And I was like, all right. Cause I thought like the older brother's taking advantage of you.
God.
But sorry. Yeah.
When I heard you did that, I was like so mortified. My husband and I were like, oh my God, Dane had to, oh my God. I was like, guys, why can't you keep it together?
That's boys being boys.
Yeah. Well, they are definitely boyish boys.
Yeah.
But so Henry's story is he actually had spacing in between his baby teeth, but not enough. We want to see like 2 to 3 millimeters in between all the baby teeth. Okay. He had maybe like 1 or 2. And so I was like, maybe he's pretty good. But he used to grind his teeth. So I was like, okay, red flag. Yeah. And he would like kick us in his sleep. Like if he slept with Matt and I, he drives Matt crazy. He's like, get this kid out of bed because he'd sleep and like literally roll over and kick us all night long. Yeah. And I knew better. I knew I should know better that that's a sign of an airway issue. But I don't know, like I figured some kids just are restless sleepers. Yeah. Anyway, I put him in an expander when he was 6 to open his palate. And he stopped kicking us in his sleep. He stopped wetting the bed. Whoa. Yeah, like he got like big gaps in between his teeth, which I thought looked adorable. Yeah. But when we opened, the roof of the mouth is the floor of the nose. So as we opened the palate, his nose opened up. He stopped sleeping noisy. I was just kind of blown away because I don't like sleep with most of my patients. I don't get to see them for real in the night, except for Henry. It was really obvious. And then he got a cold, his nose got clogged up, and like all that stuff came back. He was like kicking us again. His sleep was noisy. He started wetting that. He'll be embarrassed to hear that, but he like peed the bed a couple times. And I was like, oh my God. I was like kind of blown away by how like obvious it was to see night by night how it changed when we opened his palate. So really easy to do when you're 6, harder to do as an adult, but still possible. Like a lot of people
how old was Henry when you got him going on that?
He was 6.
Yeah. So, okay.
So just like this fall, I did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Cause and when you see a kid walking around, can you say like, hey, that kid is going to have sleep issues in the future or does currently or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And my kids even now do it. They're like, mouth breather. Like my husband too will be like, look at that forward head posture. He's like, we try not to be judgmental, but I think we're just kind of overwhelmed by how sad it is, honestly. Like to look around and see like everybody's underdeveloped airway. To go back to your point, like, okay, well, we wait till they're in middle school, and then we do some braces. Well, 90% of jaw development is done by age 12. Like your orthodontist isn't going to go through all the stuff that I do to help develop the jaw, or most of them don't. Yeah. Ben Moralia, the guy that I was telling you is like the king of airway dentistry. Yeah. He said he knows 6 orthodontists that he would trust to do ortho that have like airway in mind. Yeah. There's like very few of us that are doing this properly. So if you wait to age 12, you missed it. You're definitely going to have to remove your wisdom teeth. There's very few people who are developing their jaws to what they were meant to be to have room for their wisdom teeth. So it's become this like, American tradition to do orthodontics as a teenager and then get your wisdom teeth out when you're about 18. Both of those things do not need to happen if we were to properly develop our jaws.
Yeah, because I even had that kind of issue when I went into Invisalign, and I haven't done my consultation with you yet, which I wish I did. But the first thing they did when they weren't like my teeth weren't fitting, they're still crowded, and this is like towards the end of Invisalign, was like they brought sandpaper and grinded my teeth, like teeth to make it fit, and I was like, my mom wouldn't be happy with this because they fit at one point. These things were like straight. So if you gotta shave some off, something's not correlating, and they kind of goes to show you there's no knocks on orthodontics, because I have no skin in the game on this one, but because it seems like orthodontics, they want to make it look perfect and everything like that. But you're on the other side saying like, no, you got to open things up and make your palate a certain way so then you can breathe through your nose and differently, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk badly about orthodontists either. And I have had like dear friends that I text with every day, like that are orthodontists. Like they're some of my most beloved friends. And I just think that they were trained in classical orthodontics, which is mostly focused on the bite, which we call occlusion, and they want canine guidance, which is really nice to have. To me, canine guidance isn't going to save your life, though. Like, I'm kind of like F canine guidance at this point.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, we have to make sure people can sleep and breathe, and that's orthodontist's job, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So until they like wake up to that, we're going to just keep straightening teeth. So they use IPR, which is interproximal reduction, where they thin the teeth to try and they take the existing arch form and they just try and like correct the crowding by making the teeth a little smaller. Whereas if we just improved the arch form, then you wouldn't have to do that. But they don't believe it's possible because they weren't taught that it's possible.
And when I said before that, I thought that we're both rebels in our own right professions, I really meant like you being outspoken as a dentist and an air pathway. Am I saying that right? Airway dentistry? Airway dentist.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. By you doing this is kind of on the fringe of your scope, and like, and it's got to be scary, and I kind of went through that, being scared running a business in probably like my 5th year of owning this gym. Then COVID comes along and they shut us down. And I'm sitting there like, fuck this. Like, the first thing you can do to fight anything is stay fit. And you're going to shut my gym down before restaurants and bars and open up restaurants and bars before working out and taking care of yourself. So I had a big issue and was the last gym in town to stay open. First one to open up before the health department even allowed me to, because I'm still over. I still do not agree with the health department on multiple things. But so I understand what it's like to be a rebel in your own right mind. And it takes a lot of courage to step out and be like, I know this is the right way to help heal people. Can you explain that a little bit of just going against the grain on normal dentistry?
Yeah. Well, before I do that, I just want to say, like, I remember a friend told me that you have to follow this guy, Dane. Like, I think you'd really like him. And I started listening to your stuff on Instagram. And this was like a couple years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I love, like, you were like fighting the good fight. And I was really inspired to see that you were willing to say something, because even a couple years ago, it was really scary to speak out and speak your mind and like tell people how you feel about like what was happening in politics and how they were shutting everything down. And it was so easy to like, for me to look, it feels like a conspiracy. Like, why would they open restaurants that serve terrible food full of crap that we shouldn't eat, but close a gym? Like, are they trying to kill us? Like, it was a weird time. So I just wanted to give you props for that, because that was really like heartwarming for me to see that there were other people in the community that felt the same way. And I felt like I needed, even if it was like a fake community, that I just knowing that you existed and you had those feelings, I was like, yes, there's other people out here.
Isn't it a crazy world that we've been in where you almost feel isolated to speak out or just be like, I know what common sense feels like. I know what's right and what's wrong. And there's so many people or there's just a lot of chatter on social media that if I do speak out, I'm going to get banned or whatever. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary on a lot of ways, I was
afraid that some of my friends would think I'm a quack, or I don't know, like it.
Yeah. And they probably, the ones that did are the ones that you can kind of be like, all right, we're all right. Not hanging out anymore,
like, I guess this is we'll just agree to disagree on those topics.
Yeah. I learned not to get into the politics side, but I did learn that, you know, speaking out and just being real with who I am was probably the best thing that ever happened for me in my business, and everything was just, now I'm just in better alignment with people. People know where I sit. And I'm not saying like my way, it's my way or the highway. It's just really comforting to know, like, you know, just have that level of community, whether you go to the gym or just my friends or anything like that. Like, hey, as long as we can stick together through tough times and stay on the same plane of like, hey, this is what normal life should look like. Cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate you kind of diving in on that side and supporting me. And I really do appreciate that. But this is your time and your podcast where I want to squeeze the juice where it needs to be squeezed. So I want to ask you a couple more questions, but that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. But I, more than you know, I appreciate the community that you're part of here at the Pit. But, you know, generally speaking, I think a lot of people do want to hear that, especially the people that have kids, you know, and if the people are 40, you know, like me, and want to take care of themselves, cool. And, you know, do your own research and look into that and how widening your palate could help you and breathing through your nose. And it's funny, the night after I saw you, I came in and one of my kids, Tuck, is sleeping, and I went in right away and I closed his mouth to see if that works, you know, like I need to get this kid breathing, both of them breathing through their nose more often. And how do you start with this? And so can you just give me like, how does it look, the time, how the length, because you kind of have an understanding if a kid signs up for braces, they're in it a year and a half. I don't even know anymore, but you know that when a kid comes to you, when I bring a kid to you and they're 6, say they're 8, how does that look?
Yeah. So, first of all, closing their lips can help. So you weren't like,
okay, cool.
Base. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with a baby, you can like kind of gently close their lips and try and get the tongue to suction to the roof of the mouth.
They do that a lot in like Asia, don't they? Or China.
In France, they've been like, I don't know, they probably do it all over Europe, but I've read that like French moms will be like, close your lips.
Okay.
So honestly, the path starts like at birth. So really helpful if you can breastfeed. And then when we introduce foods, we need to get the kids chewing hard foods. You don't want them sucking everything out of a squeezy pack, because when you develop your muscles, you develop your bones, like, as you know. So good jaw development requires chewing. So that I'm going to go off your question a little bit here.
This is good.
Yeah. So
don't be a baby. Don't be a baby and suck everything. Yeah, you got to chew stuff.
Like once you start thinking about it, you're like, ew, yeah, of course. We need to be like chewing. Yeah. So baby-led weaning is like big, where they give kids a piece of steak and just let them gnaw on it. Like, cool. Yeah. And so if you're worried they're going to choke, just give them a big chunk and they'll only be able to get off what they can get off. So that's really big, helpful with jaw development. We need the tongue on the roof of the mouth. The tongue is the architect of the face. So if you're mouth breathing, then the tongue's laying slack in the mouth, and your face is going to go long and narrow instead of forward and wide.
Whoa, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So what they think happened is, like, if you look at ancient skulls, like you were talking about before, they all have nice straight teeth. They had room for their wisdom teeth. They had hardly any cavities. They were eating a really good diet. They were chewing hard foods. They were breathing through their noses, and they breastfed mostly. So they developed properly. When we breastfeed, and some people can't do it, that's understandable. There's so much we can do to help those kids. But the baby has to like pull their mandible forward, and it's very physical to get the milk out, and they have to breathe through their nose while they're doing it. Yeah. And so it's like not only a good workout, but it gets the tongue working properly, and it helps get that deep breath through the nose every time. So that's like super essential part of, God's plan, if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I kind of thought that we're almost becoming just more inbred like bulldogs. Why you're seeing all these kids look differently and mangled teeth and stuff like that. So this is so good to hear.
Yeah, it's not an inbred thing. It's totally from like our soft diets. Okay. And when baby formula was introduced, epigenetics got turned off. That we're now like 7 generations in, and with each generation, the jaw development got worse and worse and worse. So like my grandmother did not breastfeed because she thought science knew better. And so some of my uncles have sleep apnea, and that was like the beginning. And then my mom didn't breastfeed because she was like a chemical engineer. She thought that maybe this baby formula was better than my breast milk. And she also had to go back to work. So I think that's why I had issues. Yeah. So now I've tried to turn it around with my kids, but these epigenetic changes are already in place in our DNA. So it's like, that's the battle we're fighting. Yeah. So those are some of the things that you can do with infants. But I like to see kids by age 3, ideally, and get them going in a tooth pillow, which is it's a brand, but they basically use these different guides that force you to breathe through your nose, and it kind of pushes the tongue to the roof of the mouth, and it helps like gently with some expansion. But mostly like it's a habit forming device, and it helps. You have to get your tongue and your lips have to be strong in order to keep it in. So it kind of like is like a hack to replacing chewing hard foods and breastfeeding and, you know, all of that epigenetic stuff I was talking about.
Do they hate it?
Some kids hate it. Some kids are like, I'm going to gag out. Like Henry would not wear it.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I put him in an expander. I was like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to put you in an expander. And he actually like ripped his out, which I've never had another patient do that. I'm like, why are you my worst patient?
You're the one. Yeah.
Yeah, but then he cried and was like, I feel bad. I wanted it back in. And so we cemented it back in and he was fine. But if they can do it, it's like the gentlest way to make sure that they're breathing through their nose. Because the other thing is I can put an expander in, but I'm not necessarily sure you're breathing through your nose. Like I've done the palatal expansion, but what if you continue to mouth breathe, then and your tongue isn't on the roof of your mouth, everything I did is going to relapse. Yeah. So it's really important to do, in my opinion, kind of like a combination of therapies to make sure that we're actually getting to the root cause. So for Henry, I did that expander, and now he's in myofunctional therapy, which is like PT for your tongue and your lips, where we get the tongue nice and strong and the lips nice and strong so that we can help maintain like a closed lip posture with a good tongue. And then it rewires the brain to keep the tongue in the roof of the mouth. Okay. So I'm kind of like, I like a tooth pillow with myofunctional therapy, but if the kids refuse to wear a tooth pillow, and I feel like it's like a lot of kids love it. Yeah. Some kids are really happy with it. Okay. So I don't know. I think it's worth trying. And I have like a ton of success. Like some kids come in and I'm like, oh my God, like it's like you were in braces. Like they move the teeth, they like straighten the bite and start to get a little bit of expansion. They'll upright the molars in the back. Like it's a pretty powerful tool. Would you do that even if a kid's 6? I'm inquiring for my kids right now. But I would. Yeah. Okay. Unless you took it home and you were like, it's too much to try and get him to wear this every night. I don't want to fight with him. Then we just go into the expander. Yeah, I think they're going to need that. Mm-hmm. But ideally, afterwards, we would try the tooth pillow again to make sure that we've established a nasal breathing habit. Like, I don't want to just expand them and say, go ahead. That's why every time kids get braces, if they don't wear the retainer forever, everything will relapse. Yeah. So we have to make sure we like train the tongue posture afterwards to maintain. And because then we know you're actually going to use your nose. Yeah. So we can open the nose and then we have to get the habit. So the main tools that I use in little kids are tooth pillow, expanders, and you have to do upper and lower. If you just do upper, I see this all the time where they just do the upper and then they don't go very far because it quickly doesn't match the lower. And then research shows that it'll relapse over time. So you have to do upper and lower so that they both match and that you get like the adequate intermolar width to fit the tongue. And when we expand, it will also get forward growth, which is like the hardest thing to achieve, in my opinion. We can easily expand, but we can't always get that beautiful forward growth. So really nice to do that at a young age. And then once we get the tongue in place, it helps push the growth forward. Okay. So, so between the expanders, tooth pillow, and myofunctional therapy, those are usually like enough for kids. And then we can do clear aligners afterwards to like dial in the aesthetics and the bite. Yeah. But that I would wait till, their permanent teeth are in. Yeah. You can do it in mixed dentition if you need to get started earlier for some reason. But ideally you do the expanders and then put them in a tooth pillow and just wait until you want to do the aesthetic part. That's why I appreciate your approach too, is like when I went and saw you, when I went to Cleveland Clinic, kind of the answer for the sleep apnea report was, I need to get on a CPAP machine, and get in like the Darth Vader mask and sleep with that. And I'm not gonna lie, that's my fucking nightmare, sleeping with that machine. And I've seen them and I've slept in rooms with them, and you can't sleep because that guy's got that. I don't want to put my family involved in that ever. And I think a lot of people are kind of involved or kind of like can agree. Nobody wants a CPAP. No. And so
when I came to you, I was like, God, I hope that Hilary doesn't put me in a CPAP because, you know, and hear that, like, there's alternate ways to go about it.
way.
And like the cool way to go, like, was like, hey, just try that nose thing. And then can you sleep with mouth tape? I was like, I mean, I can, but, and I have been, and that's what kind of helps is like, okay, that's what you were kind of insinuating that's a good sign that I might not have as bad of sleep apnea as it may show.
Okay, so for me, I can't keep, before I started my own expansion, I could not keep mouth tape on all night. I would wake up at midnight and be like, I want to die and have to rip it off. So it's a really good sign that your nose is better than you think it is.
Okay, well, I've been lying, so I confess that I wake up and I take the mouth tape off because I feel claustrophobic. So maybe I got it bad. So I will be seeing you. But then the other thing is, you don't have to go to the CPAP necessarily either. You could do the expansion as an adult, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I need.
So the expander as an adult that I use is removable. That way, otherwise I'd be talking with a lisp right now and I have a really jacked up smile. Yeah, because there's something called a MARPE, which they put in with implants into the palate, and it creates a big diastema in the front. And I was like, just way too vain for that. Also, it's surgical. Like, you know, you have to screw it into the bone, and then you have to walk around with a lisp, which, I mean, it's effective, but I wouldn't do it. Like, I probably would never find a good time in my life to do that.
No, I can't do that.
Yeah. So I really like the appliance that I use. It's removable. You got to wear it, like, ideally like 12 hours a day. My reality is I'm not wearing it quite enough because I'm talking all the time with patients, or I wear it around my family and stuff, but it goes a lot faster if you can wear it. What's
the end all goal? Like, where are you trying to get with that? Are you going to
always
wear
nose,
that?
No. Okay. No, I'm trying to get it done in a year.
Oh, okay. So you can crank.
Yeah. But it's like the second I started wearing it, I felt my nose open. It's weird how it like supports the palate in a funny way. Like, and that's what all my patients say. Like, I have this patient who's about 18, I think she is. And she came in, she's like really struggling, like couldn't go to school, couldn't have a job. Like, she's like, I'd never sleep. She was really depressed. She barely spoke. She had her mom there, and her mom was like, this has been really hard. We've seen all these doctors. We don't know what to do. And I was like, well, she had like a beautiful smile too. She'd had orthodontics, and she'd been to the ENT. She'd done everything. They'd seen all these functional medicine doctors and stuff even. But she was a little narrow through her palate. And I'm like, let's just get you in this expander, and it'll support your mandible at night. So hers is 2 parts. So it's a mandibular advancement device, so it holds the mandible forward at night, so it keeps the tongue out of the airway as well. So she came back like 2 weeks later for her first checkup, and she was like full of energy, telling us all these stories. Riley and I were looking at each other like, oh my God.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's like, I slept for the first time in my life. And Riley and I were like, gonna cry. We were like, oh my God. And her mom was like, she said she's not depressed for the first time since she was 13.
Whoa.
Like, her entire life changed, and she hasn't even expanded that much. It was just like giving her enough support to keep her airway open at night. And that little bit of palatal expansion helped her open her nose. So we're going to keep going to like really get it open. And then we'll do, it does create some little spaces. Like, I have a little bit of a space in between my front teeth. And when I floss now, everything's light.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll use some clear aligners when I'm done to just like close that up. And I'm going to do all my patients that do the adult patients. That's the plan.
Cool. So roughly a year and a half for adults?
Yeah, it's like a year of expander and a year of clear aligners probably about. It's not terrible.
That's not terrible, because honestly, the sell on Invisalign is like, oh, we can get this done in 18 months. And I haven't talked to one person, or 18 weeks, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked to one person that's like, hey, did you go back after that 18 weeks and you're good? And they're like, no, then you get on for another 6 weeks, and then like another 2 weeks.
Revision, and another revision.
It never ends.
I know.
And there's no knocks on it, but like, it's not the 18 weeks that they tell you for the most part that I've heard of, and I'm not in the field, but like, so that's why this doesn't seem too bad at all.
It's honestly not that bad. It's just, you have to like want it because it's annoying, and you have to remember to take it in and out, and you have to deal with it every day.
Yeah.
But compared to wearing a CPAP for the next 5 decades, it's like an easy choice in my opinion.
Yeah. I'd take that all day.
Yeah. And then, so for adults, I do like a range of stuff. Sometimes I just tell them like, hey, why don't you wear a nasal dilator and mouth tape? And people come back, and I'll sleep test them again. And I'm like, you don't have sleep apnea anymore. Like, sometimes it's that easy. And They just needed to like keep their lips closed.
Yeah.
Because when you open your mouth, your tongue can fall back and close off your airway really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we make them a night guard that's called a mandibular advancement device that just maintains, it doesn't improve your airway, but it maintains your airway at night so that your tongue and your jaw doesn't fall back and close off your airway. That's a quick fix.
And that's a problem for a lot of guys with thick necks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like Joe Rogan is a example, like everyone knows him. He's talked openly about how he has sleep apnea and he wears a mandibular advancement device. I actually know which one he has because my friend made it for him. And it has this little flange that kind of holds the tongue from falling back. Most people, I think, would gag on that. It's like not a popular device.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of surprised.
Joe's a beast to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm like, dang. But, you know, he could also do orthodontics and remodel his mouth and get off of that thing probably.
Be fine.
Yeah, I never promised that, but it's like very possible. I've seen people who have 90 apnea events an hour go down to 0.
Really?
Because structurally, sleep apnea is fundamentally a jaw problem.
Yeah.
Like the jaws are not forward enough and wide enough in the face, so the tongue doesn't have room and the tongue's closing off the airway. So if we fix that, it fixes the problem.
Like I'm a geek with sleep because I do so much research, you know, on the side because I want to sleep well and I want my kids to sleep well. And a lot of people come in the gym and they look like shit. And I'm like, well, are you sleeping well? You know, so I want to have the answers, which this helps me with a lot of the answers, but on my own research too, is the evolution of time. We don't sleep outside. We're not like Native Americans where they're sleeping outside. Your respiratory system is completely different now than it was 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. Do you kind of agree with that?
Oh, for sure.
And so it changes the way we have to breathe, that we're in these environments that it's heated for us. So your respiratory system's so different. Mm-hmm. The way we breathe is so short now compared to big, long breaths. So we try and include that. I'm giving the plug for the pit now, but we try and include that also in a lot of our recovery exercises here at the pit, is like using your diaphragm better, using, you know, belly breathing, all the recovery techniques outside of just training to help expand your lungs, expand everything, get that extra oxygen in your system and out, you know? And so
yeah, that's big.
It's big, and it's kind of crazy how it relates to how we sleep, how it impairs your nasal breathing. And I guess all that stuff is so fascinating to me.
I mean, if you think about Native Americans, first of all, they were in tune with circadian rhythm, which is so essential to good sleep. You know, that like morning sunlight, watching the sunset, and like not having a blue light.
Yeah.
And like I try to turn off overhead lights after the sunset, and I have block blue lights on so they like have more of an orange hue after sunset. And if you're watching a screen, you should have like blue blockers on. Like, so that Native Americans stayed. The research around circadian rhythm is so cool. Like it's like blowing up right now. And I feel like it's also so essential to like hormone health and all these things. So that's one thing that Native Americans had. They were also sleeping on the ground, so they were grounding into the earth, so they were staying in rhythm with the earth. They
didn't even need the grounding mats that they're selling everywhere now. Yeah.
There's like this Schumann resonance that the earth gives off. It's like a natural frequency that if you are in touch with, you can stay on your circadian rhythm. But they've shown that if people they don't allow them to ground into the earth, they can totally lose their rhythm of sleep and daytime. So that's another advantage that they had. And then because they weren't living in this stuffy indoor environment, their noses stayed open. So I think one of the reasons I had a problem as a kid is I grew up in Michigan and our basement would flood every year. And I'm sure my house was full of mold. Like, I think that's why I'm sensitive to the snow mold that's happening now. But we didn't know like how toxic mold is at that time. But indoor living is like really bad for nasal breathing.
Yeah. God, that's interesting.
Yeah. So really good that you're teaching people to deep breathe. Another thing that happens when you breathe through your nose is you use your diaphragm, which you were just talking about. And so the lymph system in our body doesn't have like a heart to pump it, right? It's sort of a passive flow, but the diaphragm works as a pump for the lymph. So that's one of the reasons that when we establish nasal breathing in kids, a lot of times tonsils and adenoids resolve on their own, is because first of all, we're cleaning and filtering the air, we're getting nitric oxide through the nose, and that helps reduce the burden on the lymph tissue, but also that pump as the diaphragm moves the lymph tissue around, it's like designed to do that.
Yeah.
And when we breathe through our mouth, we just get these like little breaths, right?
Yeah.
So you can like cure asthma with proper breathing. Patrick McEwen's like a Kendra's going to train with him in Ireland.
Whoa.
My hygienist next week. There's so much you can do with proper breathing. So really cool that you guys are focusing on that and teaching it.
Look, I have people like you that are professions in so many different ways that I'm fortunate enough to be around, that I just kind of connect the dots. So that's the beauty of where I am in the gym right now, is like, I'm such a geek in so many different ways, but I'm not an expert in many, if anything.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to just say, okay, well, you are truly the expert in dentistry and the way to breathe and everything like that. And so now I can not only refer people to you in your practice, but also steal things like this.
Yeah.
And then now how do I incorporate that into how we train? And if somebody comes in, they're just not feeling well, or their kids are just not sleeping well or anything like that, then there's the solution, you know? So that's after almost 9 years of owning this gym, is the best thing that we have going for us is our community, but it's because I just get to steal people like you, you know, people like Neil, who I had on, Tyrell that I've had on, just pick everybody's brains and come up with a general way to train, recover, take care of your sleep, breathe better, things like that. And so
I think that's brilliant. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of like you're the general contractor for their health. Like you're like, here's a person that could be a resource, you know?
Yeah. And that's why I'm excited about getting our online platform, is so then you don't just have to be in Bozeman, you know, you could be elsewhere. You can be in wherever, Florida, and still be doing our training program, but have resources like you on there, like Neil, like anybody, the people that we're going to have on here of doctors, chiropractors, dentists, things like that. So then you're hearing it from our app too. And
I think that's brilliant. Like a lot of people got disenchanted with medicine during COVID and don't go to the doctor anymore and need to find like doctors that they trust or other resources. And I feel like the gym is like the perfect place to be like, hey, you guys are all fit and healthy and probably going to live longer than the average human. What are you doing right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to lean on people. Like I have a big issue with trainers or gym owners that they're like the end all be all and their way is the only way. And you have to go to places where you can almost just put your ego aside and say, I actually don't know shit about this. You need to go to Hilary when it comes to breathing, because I don't, you know, or in any field. And that's where, you know, like being around, not to bring it always back to football, being around like Belichick he's not a good trainer. He doesn't know anything about medicine, but he has really good staffs in every department to help get the team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so that's how I look at it.
I want to talk about that. That sounds interesting.
Total
how did that
out.
work? Like could he like see a problem, or did he just like across the board be like, everybody's going to talk to this guy?
Well, across the board is, you know, he was just so good at departmentalizing everything. Not only you got your offense and defense, but then you have your medical staff, you have your physical therapy staff. I pulled a lot of information of how they ran that organization, of how when somebody gets injured, yes, you go to your doctor, wherever, but that they have to coordinate equally with the physical therapist. Like that physical therapist in the Patriot organization was sought as equal to any doctor. So there was all around, Tom Brady was not better than anybody as special teams player. All around, everybody is equally as important to do their job. It doesn't matter what field you're in. So that's kind of how I stole everything here is, you know, even if you're an MD, you're not treated as any different than this doctor here or this person here, because jointly we all need everybody equally to solve every issue that we come across. So
yeah. That's become like super clear. Like I would say since COVID is that people will come in and ask me like, have you heard about this protocol? And I'm like, no, tell me about it. Because people are like deep diving into certain topics. Like you can learn more about circadian rhythms from some 20-year-old who just got interested in it online than maybe like a sleep doctor, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting if you're willing to be open-minded and look at your community, what you can learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, am I missing anything? Where can people find you?
Well, I'm at Saddle Peak Dental.
Yep.
That's my practice here in Bozeman. We have like a general dental practice where we do everything from cleanings and fillings and crowns, but we take a biological approach. So we don't use anything toxic. Everything's biocompatible. We do safe mercury removal and kind of just make sure that we're not putting extra crap into your body.
Cool.
Through the mouth. But my real focus is Airway Dentistry. Dr. Chris is kind of doing a lot of the other stuff. He's an insanely talented genius.
And you have an unbelievable Instagram with a lot of information.
Yeah, my Instagram's really good. I'm trying to like put out a ton of education on there. I wouldn't say it's really good. I don't know why I said that. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing at all, but I just sort of,
it is really good. There's a ton of information that I look forward to every week, just pulling things again. So
thanks.
yeah, I appreciate you putting that out there and putting things on the line also, because I know it doesn't go with just the standard way to do dentistry.
Yeah. Well, we both had to get brave to speak our truth. So I appreciate you noticing that. I feel like I don't think of myself as a rebel. When you said that, I was like, yeah, I kind of am.
Totally are. Yeah. But again, thank you for taking the time being on
so
here
fun.
and explain to everybody and myself and diving more into how to help and how to help your kids, but yourself, and everybody probably needs to this at some extent.
Yeah, almost everyone.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. I've seen 2 kids since I opened my practice in the last year and a half that didn't need help.
Crazy.
So thank you for helping spread the word.
Of course.
I'm honored that you cared.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.